I don't know that Nat's going to explain his T-shirt. However, I like that, damaged goods. Okay, Nat Woodward is going to be speaking. You are here.
Thank you. Microphone check. I wore this for you, Michael. We going? All right. So in the last century, I was invited to make a map. I was pretty excited because I love maps. I grew up without a TV, but I did have a 3-foot by 2-foot map from National Geographic of the United States. The map would be featuring a festival, and it would have to have a stage, and it would have to have some campgrounds. I looked at the past maps and started to ponder. I followed suit for the most part. When you do this stuff, you get a giant CAD file, which is like an engineering thing that I trace in Illustrator, and eventually came up with my first map. So I do this a couple more times, and eventually there's this thing that it's all going to come to an end, and it's got to be really special. And this show is going to be in Vermont in this old town, Coventry. So I want to make it special, and I'm like, special Vermont old town map. That's Googling. And I come up with these antique maps from the Library of Congress, which is a place that in 1999 I pillaged often from for design jobs because it was royalty-free and high-res, and clip art was terrible. But I fell in love with this stuff, and I wanted it to be like that. And I needed like a private helicopter ride over Coventry to get this view, although really I wanted to quit everything and learn how to make one of these things for real in lithography. I would learn years later that my grandfather actually drew views of these things himself from Bunker Hill of Boston. Looked just like this stuff. So I decide I'm working at a design shop, and I know upstairs there's this company that does a thing called GPS. And I know that the guy upstairs is a fan, and I go up there and I talk to him about it, and he tells me how it all kind of works, and I buy this picture from the state of Vermont, and it shows up in the mail of the general area that I'm interested in. And I bring it to him, and he loads it up in his weird old software and this stuff that I've never seen. It wasn't old back then. That was a misspeak. It was brand new. We had never seen it. And he lets me navigate around Coventry and sort of try to find a way to see how this layout is and where the venue's going to be and all this other stuff. So I ended up doing this crazy Photoshop job with all these old maps and lots of layering and compositing. I had a Power Mac 7100 and took 45 minutes for each save. It was terrifying. There were a lot of tears. So this kind of became a thing for me, and I made a few more maps. But after this period, maybe 2 years later, actually Google Earth launched. And Google Earth made it so I no longer had to go hire the guy with the funny GPS system, and I could kind of navigate around and figure out, how I wanted to approach this thing and do my panoramic map view, as these things were called. So then the band comes back. The shows are getting more complicated. They're getting larger. There's more information. There's more stuff people want. It's really about a stage. That's where we're going to. And where you're camping. I need to get back to my tent. So for me, like these flat maps that we'd been doing were really not ever effective. I always felt like I need to have a sense of where I am. The stage is true north. So you get these properties in these spaces, and they're very spread out, they're very odd, and my main goal is really, where is the stage? How do you make it the center? How do you get everything framed up in a piece of paper that you can reasonably hold, which is still around 11 by 17. Like, you can only hold your arms so far. And then there's also the reality. The venue itself, actually, you can fit 12 of them inside a racetrack. And yet the venue has to look like the biggest and most important thing. Like, that's true north. That's where we're headed. So I load up the CAD file inside of Google Earth, and I spin around, and I try to find some kind of horizontal friendly view that captures all the pieces of land where campsites are going to happen, and then mostly has the venue in the center. The problem with this is that the venue, again, is super small. So I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to hide the lies? I've started off completely truthful. Now we got to lie. The venue area needs to be big. So I get this artwork, and I'm like, aha, it'll be a spaceship coming down onto Earth, and that will give me the freedom to break from scale and lie a little bit in between certain areas of interest and such. And so that becomes my template. And I spend time exploring it. I trace over it. I've used a lot of automated tools. You end up with a lot of noise. But you really just have to fill in the stuff, and you've got a map. Thank you.